In a hybrid vehicle, we've got the green to help you go green. Fast approval, low interest rates, and Mother Nature approved. Your future self will thank you. Visit firstnationalbankonline.com or call 784-456-1501 for more information to help you turn your green dreams into clean realities. First National Bank, here for you.
WEFM, the new fresh sound.
WhatsApp us or call us at 457-9997. Activated Mornings on WEFM 99.9 is on now.
And the time right now, Richard, is quickly. Well, it's now 9:25, and we are back with you for part 2 of our political conversation series. And this time we are interviewing Honorable Camillo Gonsalves, who has said we could just say Camillo. All right, so we are going to get back into it. So I think Dianna.
Right. So Camillo. Now, I'm sure you definitely know that one of the big debates going on in the country around this election time, and even before that, is who's going to take over from Ralph Gonsalves. And of course, your name is in the mix. So if the Honorable Camillo Gonsalves were to be Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, what would that look like, and how different or similar would that be to the reign of Ralph Gonsalves?
Okay, before you answer that though, do you want to be Prime Minister?
The answer to that is right now, no, because we have a Prime Minister. And you can only ever have one captain of your team at any one time.
Do you have aspirations?
No. And I take this very seriously, because what you're elected to do is serve the people of your constituency and serve your country. Mm-hmm. And if you have burning within you some desire to supplant or take over or usurp who is in charge at the moment, you've lost vision. You don't have your eye on the ball. And one of the things that has always bothered the opposition is that we've always been very comfortable in the ULP, that we have one leader. You hear Mr. Shallow, who has not even been elected, saying he wants to be Prime Minister. You hear Mr. Leacock saying that the Senator John in North Windward, who has not been elected, should be the first woman Prime Minister. Everybody's jockeying for Prime Minister. That is not the goal. You have to be on a team. Only one person could be Messi. Only one person could be Viv Richards. And what you say, if I ask you, is your goal to take over the radio station? You will say, I'm doing a job right now. And maybe something. But you should.
Because right, when you go into an organization, yes, you may start as junior staff, right? You work your way up, but you may have aspirations upon going in of possibly becoming manager one day.
Yeah, but
who's to say that I don't want to own a radio station at some point in time?
But to become manager or to own a radio station, you have to do your current job well.
True.
You have to do your current job well. And the job is so all-encompassing. Mm-hmm. And the job is such a challenge that if you are focusing on other things, you're not focusing on your job. And it's very, very important that we all focus on doing our job. The best leader for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and this is my deep, deep and abiding conviction, the best leader for St. Vincent and the Grenadines is Ralph Gonsalves. We're about to enter another election where Ralph Gonsalves is going to be the leader of the party and hopefully, if we're victorious, leader of the country for another 5 years.
So can I ask you the question by year 4.5? Could I ask you about the question around that?
You can ask the question when whatever time the Prime Minister is no longer the Prime Minister.
Okay. So that applies to my question as well?
Well, absolutely, because I am very comfortable where I am as the Minister of Finance, as the representative for East St. George. And all of us understand our role in the larger organization. And all of us understand the objective. The objective is not to win prime minister. The objective is to serve the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The objective is to uplift their respective communities. The objective is to develop St. Vincent and the Grenadines under the leadership of Ralph Gonsalves. Now, at whatever day in the future, hopefully in the distant future, that Ralph Gonsalves is not prime minister, that will be a decision that will be made by the party. And I have to tell you that I am very comfortable going to war, political war, going to war with any of my comrades at the helm of the party, because we all have the same vision, we all have the same objectives, and we all have the same desires. The only things that would be changing would be matters of priority and emphasis. So because we've all been trained at the University of Ralph Gonsalves politically, and we all adhere to that same vision, all it would be is maybe his priority on this thing is a little higher than my priority on that thing, or any other member, Carlos's priority on that thing, or Curtis's, or Saboto's, or Kisal's, or whatever. But the same thrust, the same ideological thrust, the same developmental thrust. You would not be seeing massive changes in the policy and direction of the Unity Labour Party if any one of us became prime minister. Again, everybody has their pet project. Everybody has the thing that they might like a little bit more than something else. So priorities might adjust, but the general thrust and direction of the country will not change because all of us are united. And that's an important point to make, because what unites the other party is not a common philosophy. It's not a common ideology. It's a common desire to get rid of Ralph Gonsalves and the ULP. And once they do that, if they ever did that, they would say mission accomplished. And then the infighting would start because they don't have a common position on anything. This happened in Grenada. There was when Tillman Thomas was elected in Grenada a few years ago, the objective of everybody in that party was to vote out Keith Mitchell, who was the prime minister. And so on day one, mission was accomplished. We got rid of Keith Mitchell. And then within months, all of them started turning on each other. One guy started saying the party's policy is this. Another one said the party's policy is that. Then people began jostling for who was to be prime minister and who was to be the next leader, and the thing collapsed. And they were only in office for one term. And then Keith came back, and then the party had to reorganize and understand that what you have to do is get a team that is singing from the same song sheet. And so whenever there will be a leadership change, in the distant future, what you can be confident of is that you will still recognize the ULP. It will still be doing the same things that you expect the ULP to do. You can't say that one person wants more investment, one person wants less investment, one person wants housing, one person don't want housing. You don't have that kind of ideological and philosophical difference of opinion within the ULP. All of us are committed to the same cause.
You're good with your...
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So a question to you. Now, it would be wrong for us to make an assumption that everything is rosy and fine within the country, right?
Absolutely.
What for you are the most pressing issues within our nation, particularly among our youth?
Among our youth?
Well, nation, and you could do subsection youth.
I think that we have a challenge, not just in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but across the region with crime. I think that there is a danger in our region of transnational crime getting too strong a foothold in our countries, and that includes St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we have learned from countries like Trinidad and Tobago and like Jamaica that if transnational crime gets a strong foothold, it's very hard to dislodge. That's a challenge that I think we have to be very focused on. Another challenge that we have to be focused on, I'm coming to the youth. My third one will be the youth. I don't want to give a whole lecture.
Okay.
Is the impact and the challenges related to climate change. I don't think that they're sufficiently in the forefront of people's minds. But it's happening. Hurricane season come in and a hurricane might hit us and whatever. But the challenges that we have faced from drought, from floods, from storms, and from hurricanes, from sargassum seaweed, from coastal erosion, those things are going to become more and more intense and more acute, and they are going to seriously impact the prospects for development in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's not the sexiest thing to talk about, but it is the most fundamental challenge that our countries face, which is why we're spending millions of dollars to build sea defenses and sea walls and build the bridges higher and river training and all the rest. None of that really helps your country to develop. It's money that you're spending that is not really taking your country forward, but it is insulating you. Mm-hmm. Exactly, but it's insulating you from the next challenge. And we are spending 1/3 of our capital budget, hundreds of millions of dollars a year, on protecting our coastline, protecting our coastal infrastructure, making our houses stronger, defending us against climate change, helping irrigation for farmers and all the rest of it. It goes sort of under the radar a little bit, but if you don't do that, we won't have a country to talk about in a few years. And that's a very, very critical thing. Now, on the youth side, I think that what we have to do is, in a general, not in a sort of umbrella sense, increase opportunity. Young people want to have options laid out in front of them. They don't want to feel like there's only one path to go. I have to take this job because there's no other job. And I have to go on this path because if I don't do this path, I can't do something else. And so what you have to do, even as we have reduced unemployment in the country, we have to increase opportunity in the country. We've done some of that with education, so that if a young person now wants to go off to university, they feel like they'll get money to go to university. There are ways that they can pay for their university. We've done that with doing that with entrepreneurial help like Prime and the rest, when somebody said, well, I want to start my own business, and they could get a little help starting their business. But we still have, even though as unemployment goes down, underemployment is still a problem. So you have a job, but maybe you're qualified to do something at a higher level because you have your bachelor's degree or your master's degree, but you're doing a job that is not taking full advantage of your skill set. So you're underemployed. You have a job, you're paying the bills, but it is not the fulfilling job that you want to have. Or you have a business, but the business is not as big as you would like it to be because you can't get a loan from the bank to really expand it and so on. So the idea, I think, I don't speak for young people, but I talk to enough young people. If you try to capture what it is, it's that I want to feel like I have options. I want to feel like I can choose different paths. And further than that, I want to feel like if I make a misstep, that doesn't define me. That doesn't, if I take the step and it doesn't work out, I can reset and pivot and try something else, which is not to go into individual programs, but which is why we developed Prime, for example, the way that we developed it. It could have been a loan, but if it's a loan, let's say you want to start a hair salon, you're a young person. You start the hair salon, you borrow money to start the hair salon. The hair salon doesn't work out. You close down. You still have the loan you have to pay. We were trying to create something that a young person could say, let me try this thing. And if it doesn't work out, the only thing that's happened is that I've spent time, but I've gained a lesson, I have knowledge, my next plan will be better. But I don't have a bill, I don't have a debt, I don't have a loan that I'm still paying off. And I think that what we have to do is to create opportunities and options for young people where they feel like that are responsive to their desires in the time. Something else that we're working on right now for young professionals is the issue of housing. It used to be a lot easier in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to get a house as a young professional. When Gerald was an elected representative, when Doc was an elected representative, the government made a lot of innovations. 100% loans and 10 cents land. So people could get
security land.
The land for cheap, build a house for cheap. These days, land is so expensive and building is so expensive. Even if you say 100% loan, you're still looking at $400,000, you know, to get a piece of land and build a house. And that piece of land is far away from where you want to build. So we are now moving into the area of condominiums and townhouse style living. And we're going to make announcements about that soon. So that if you're a young person, let's say you have a student loan already, you're paying a student loan. You don't know how you're going to pay a student loan and your car loan and also pay for a house. It's difficult. We're developing a package with the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines where you can roll your student loan and your car loan and this house loan into something for a condominium. You consolidate and pay one loan for a townhouse that has been developed in a way that is affordable but comfortable and modern and all the rest of it. Because young people don't want to feel stuck. They don't want to feel stuck. And young people today are far more impatient than they were 20 or 30 years ago. 20, 30 years ago, a young person said, well, if I stick at this for 20 years, I'll be able to achieve that and that and the other. Young people don't have that kind of perspective anymore. They want a quicker response. And so the government has to also learn to respond more quickly. We can't just sit down and say, well, they're too impatient. We have to also respond more quickly. And the idea that I think you could always boil it down to, well, the problem is housing, or the problem is jobs, or the problem. But to me, the problem is opportunity and wanting to be able to follow your dreams in a way that is, in a way that the government is there to facilitate you in following your dreams. We've done it with education. We're doing it with housing. We're working on it with entrepreneurship. And that's the sort of ecosystem that we want to create.
It's interesting that you say that, because I think part of that too would help to curb some of the brain drain that we are seeing, in that persons are feeling like they're not able to achieve their full potential staying here. And housing is part of it as well, in that I would not be able to stay here, work and acquire the things that I want to acquire. So that is interesting.
And look, let's be real. Brain drain is not a new thing in the Caribbean. 70% of the medical professionals of Caribbean descent work outside of the Caribbean. 70%. Now, these people, their respective governments in Jamaica and Barbados and Trinidad have paid for their education in one way or another. But at the point of now making a decision of what they want to do with their own individual life, they say it's better to go be a doctor in Canada or the United States or somewhere else. Brain drain has always been a problem. And there are a number of challenges there. One is our proximity to North America. It's easier to go up. Two, modern times, is social media. Because if you see it on your screen, you want it for yourself. Even if what you're seeing on your screen is not real. You know, a lot of what you see on a man flamming in front of his Lamborghini in a mansion, the car ain't his, the house ain't his, the fur coat ain't his, the woman ain't his.
Just flexing. Yeah.
But you see it enough and you start to say to yourself, well, why can't I have that? I want that as well. And it creates a level of desire and a level of dissatisfaction that creates some of these impulses. A lot of young people migrate and realize that the grass is not always green on the other side. Some of them come back, or some of them, when you meet them, they say, boy, I never worked this hard when I was at home. I work in 2 jobs, I'm doing all of these things. But we do want to create a leveling of that sense of opportunity and the sense of options that exist for young people.
Question as well. How successful would you say Prime has been, though?
Well, we're doing evaluations. And if you go back to what I said, it depends on how you measure the success of Prime.
And how have you measured the success of Prime?
So I said the first objective is to help create and inculcate a sense of a culture of entrepreneurism in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That is not one that you put a number on. You want to say that people now feel that it is a legitimate option to be an entrepreneur. That is not a side hustle. That is not something you're doing well because to make ends meet, but that I can go out and be an entrepreneur and start my own business. I think in that regard, Prime has been very successful because there are a lot of people who are now taking a first option of thinking about being an entrepreneur. And I think that's very successful. We are doing measurements as to how many businesses we supported are still in existence at 3 years, 5 years, and 7 years. Now, Prime hasn't been old enough to do that full evaluation yet.
So was this post in 2020?
Right. So obviously we don't. Well, yes, there was a 20. Right. There was a 2020 display. You're absolutely correct. So we don't have the 7-year data yet, and we're just gathering the 5-year data. And the 3-year data, what we've seen is about a third to 40% of the businesses that we do surveys. A third to 40% of the new businesses are still in existence, and then the businesses that already existed, it's a higher percentage. Because there's some businesses that were brand new, and some people who are saying, well, I just need a little something, some equipment. Now, we ask those entrepreneurs for satisfaction sort of surveys. Do you think Prime helped? Have you employed more employees since Prime and before Prime? And the general trend is this. If Prime gave you a larger amount of money, the maximum is $40,000. If you were in that $20,000 to $40,000 range, Prime has been more successful in the eyes of the entrepreneur than if you were in the $2,500 to $8,000 range. The smaller Prime grants, you're having more businesses that did not succeed, and you're having more people who said, well, if I had gotten more money, I would have done better. So there are differences even across Prime. But I think that the program itself has achieved a few of its objectives. It has created a sense of entrepreneurship. It has helped some businesses to grow and succeed. And it has given a sense among young people that if I want to start a business, there is a way in which we can start a business. Now, what we're trying to do with Prime now, in addition, in sort of Prime 2.0, is twin the Prime program with more sort of background classes in terms of money management and these sorts of things. What we said was that if you are a small shop and you only wanted $5,000, you didn't have to, we're not going to expect you to go and find an accountant and do a massive business plan or something like that. If you wanted $40,000, we would expect you to do that. So there was a sliding scale of sort of the standards of what you have to do to get Prime. We've also noticed that some businesses succeed better than other businesses. The sort of, I want to start a rum shop kind of Prime grant has not been as successful as somebody who has thought through a business plan that is different than what is already out there. So we're sort of recalibrating what we do with Prime. We want to help more farmers and fishers because that has proven to be successful. We want to help more women entrepreneurs because the women have done better than the men, generally in terms of Prime success. And we want to see why is it that the women are doing better than the men in Prime. So there's some adjustments that we have to make, but I think that the program has been excellent. The challenge that we've had with Prime is that people have figured if I apply for Prime, I must get Prime. So you'll meet people who say, man, I applied for Prime 3 years ago and I ain't got a Prime yet. But Prime was not promised to every applicant.
How many applicants have you?
Well, initially when we started Prime, we thought we would do about 200 Prime grants a year. We got 9,000 applications. So we upped it. We upped it, but there's still a lot of people who have not gotten Prime. The Prime committee, of which I'm not a part, this is a committee that does not involve politicians. The Prime committee analyzes each business proposal on its merits, and they make decisions that this one is more suited or more likely to succeed, or this young person. Sometimes they bet on the business, sometimes they bet on the individual. They say this person will make it work because they have a drive and all the rest of it. So they're variables. But the demand has proven to be a lot greater than the supply of money that we have. And people sometimes say, well, I ain't get Prime yet, so I know if Prime really a thing.
If it's still happening.
Is Prime still going on? But Prime is still going on. But it is a situation where you should not assume that just because you applied, you will get. It is not a giveaway. It is an investment in individual entrepreneurs and individual businesses.
All right. I will just say one thing with regards to this, and then I'll hand it over to Dianna and Doc. In that, I think the successful persons, well, whether they've been successful at continuing their businesses or they haven't, that we need to know who they are. I know that API does it and Searchlight Newspaper does it in terms of highlighting successful persons who have been beneficiaries and who have made it work. And I think if you have those individuals out there in the media, then other persons can say, well, you know what? They took a chance on themselves. I too can take that chance on myself. But I think part of it had to do with the secrecy in a sense, and maybe secrecy might not be the best word. Might not necessarily be the best word, but the reason why I'm saying it in that way is that there were two lists that came out. There was the initial list and then the second list. And after the second list, we don't know who the beneficiaries were.
Right.
So this is one of the reasons too. And I was telling to persons, well, I was on the second list just for full disclosure. Right. But I was telling persons that if I know that such and such, Doc has a business or Dianna has a business, and I know that they've benefited, then I would quicker support Dianna and Doc with their business because I know that they are trying to help themselves. But not knowing who some of these business persons are, because they're not out there, then how are they actually going to get the support? Yes, they can do it on their own, but sometimes they need that little bit of an extra push. And I suppose they need to have working examples, so that persons can say, well, you know what? If we're developing this entrepreneurial spirit, these are the examples who you can follow. And
I think you have a good point there, and I want to zero in on it. We have been speaking to API, for example, about highlighting successful prime businesses at various levels. Mm-hmm. So Be Fit, for example, that gym is a prime recipient.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and prime, it would not have existed but for Prime. And I said, go down there and talk to Lyndon and see what he did with his Prime grant and all the rest of it. What we had done initially that had proved to be a problem was, and this was on me because I was the minister. I am the minister for Prime, and I'm so proud of the program. When we got the first set of applicants selected, I said, print the name, put them on TV, show everybody with a certificate, and let's do it again. And the blowback on social media was amazing. Some people would call me in tears and say, look, please tell me that I only get it because me and you, Camillo, must do something, and it must be politics, and it must be this, and pull string, and how you get and me not get, or this person is an NDP, how that NDP person get, and the Prime Minister called me, and the Prime Minister said, let me ask you something. Do you publish the name of everybody who gets a tuition grant? And I said, no. And he said, do you publish the name of everybody who is a recipient of social welfare? And I said, no. And he said, do you publish the name of everybody who gets a house from the government? And I said, no. And he said, so why are you publishing the name? Why are you exposing young entrepreneurs to this kind of scrutiny and that they didn't ask for? And they didn't agree to when they applied for Prime? Did you ask these people for permission to publish their name? Did you ask these people for permission to broadcast the fact that they got $20,000 or $40,000? Have you thought about the complications that would cause? And I said, no, frankly, I didn't. I was just trying to celebrate the fact that these people got Prime. And he said, in the wider context, it's not a good idea. But what we can do, which is what you're saying, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, is to do more to celebrate the people who have done well with Prime and who are willing to say, I got Prime and I did well with Prime, and all the rest of it. So that's something that we're working on, and I'm working on with API, and we're trying to do some social media spots as well about not a long half-hour program, a little, I got Prime, this is what I did, my business is successful. Because there are a lot of great stories out there.
I'm amazed at one revelation today.
I've said it on the program before.
I didn't hear you before.
Yeah, I've said it multiple times.
I'm astonished. You know, we can start with release said. So
because it's public money, I had no problems with the public knowing. So yeah.
But I want to share. And a big issue, jobs.
Yes.
The opportunity of education and so forth. Ultimately, a job.
Yes.
But entrepreneurship, owning a business and so forth, yes. But for those individuals who obtain a job, recently there's been a lot of debate as regards unemployment rates in the country, unemployment rates among the youth. And you've done something of a full disclosure that's somewhat being questioned and so forth in that area. How do you explain that? What are the facts?
Look, the fact of the matter is that currently in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the unemployment rate is in the single digits. Unemployment has never been lower in St. Vincent and the Grenadines than it is right now. Where do we get this data from? First of all, we have a labor force survey, which was done by us. It was done right prior to the last one we have is right prior to the opening of Sandals. And it said at that point, the unemployment rate was 10.8%. Then Sandals opened, hired another 900 people. Then the Clay Harbor call center expanded. Then other businesses began to grow. Then the construction industry took off and hired more people. And we monitor the point at which that survey was done and the data from the NIS, which tracks how many employees are receiving NIS. And there are about 46,000 people right now who are employees in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, when you look at the labor force of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which is about 55,000 people, close to 60,000 people, you realize that just based on NIS employees alone, which is what we call the formal sector, you have 80% of the labor force employed. And then you have to think about the people who are in the so-called informal section, people who don't pay NIS, the farmers, the vendors, the van drivers and conductors, the domestic assistants, all of these other people who have jobs, and you factor those into the mix as well and say, well, they're beyond who is on the NIS list. And you realize that unemployment at the moment is in the single digits. Now, it comes back to the point that I talked about earlier. A lot of those who are employed are underemployed and would like to have a better job than they had. But that's a different question. The question about unemployment, the fact of the matter is, and it is an empirical fact. Anybody can tell you that, boy, I go down the corner, I see three fellas sit down on the corner and they ain't working. So I ain't know what Camillo talking about. But the empirical numbers are that unemployment is at a historical low in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and is still falling. Now, there are also people in this country who do not want to work for various reasons. There's some boys on the block, as they call them, who, if you ask, they say, man, not now go on. And if you ask them, but do you want to work? Have you sought a job? Have you looked for a job? They say no. Or there'll be a young person who say, well, I just had my child and I don't want to work right now because I'm taking care of my child. Or it might be another young person who say, I'm taking a gap year between university, end of college and going off to university. Those people don't factor into your unemployment numbers because they're not looking for work. But among the people who are looking for work and don't have a job and can't get a job, we are at historic lows. What I would like and what I'm searching for and what I'm trying to get is that people have more mobility as employees. In our day, Gerald, you got a job and you're stuck with that job for 20, 30 years and then you retire at the end of it. That's not what young people want to do now. They want to work at a job. They want to see other jobs being advertised. They want to move from Sagicor to Banker St. Vincent, from Banker St. Vincent to ECGC, from ECGC to Sandals, from Sandals to the government. That's what young people want to do now. They want to move around. And that, to me, not so much the issue of employment, unemployment. I think that we are trending absolutely and indisputably in the right direction. What I want to do now is create that sense of opportunity and mobility between jobs, so that you don't have to wait in your company for the guy above you to retire so that you can move up a slot. But that there's a slot over there in another job, in another company, and you could move up that way and zigzag and move your way up the chain that way. That's what I think is the next frontier on unemployment. That's the next frontier.
All right. So
we can't have this without. I haven't been hearing anything over the last few months about CBI? It's like that discussion is
all right. So, all right. We definitely have to wrap because we did go over time. So you know what this means.
As long as you guys can tolerate me coming a few minutes late, I'll come back. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We will have to have you back soon. So I would organize with that because I probably only got to ask like 3 questions off of my
I talk too much. You could say that, you know. You could tell me I talk too much.
Number 1, you are a politician. Number 2, you are a trained lawyer. I
wanted to hear more about CBI.
What happened? We are going to definitely have to get to.
I'm wondering why they've abandoned that plank as well. But just to say, they have not. They've abandoned it publicly, but CBI is still funding their campaign. So they have not abandoned CBI. But that's all I'm going to say for now.
That's all you're going to say for now, right? Because I also had another question from Kingsley, but we definitely out of time. So
Kingsley,
you just stop, right?
Hello, Kingsley. How you doing? Big up yourself.
Kingsley is a constituent of East St. John.
And he has many wonderful things to say about the opportunities that have come his way, I believe, if he's honest, over the last couple of years in St. Vincent again. Right, big up Kingsley.
We definitely have to have you back soon, so we would organize. All right.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. So we thank you for being here this morning, and look forward to you being back soon. All right.
Thank you.
And a fun fact that I found out, folks, he actually does a part-time DJing thing here when he's ready. So fun fact in case persons did not know.
Look, anybody who listens to Reggae Blast on WEFM knows that Ragamuffin Milo passes through and he plays regularly. And big up Maka, big up Val, big up everybody else who plays. But everybody knows on WEFM that I've been playing on Reggae Blast now for 20-something years as a DJ on WEFM.
All right, so DJ Ragamuffin, we look forward to seeing you soon.